And we are just about, let me see, Keith Pelzer. Is that me? Dang, it goes live quick. Let's get going. If I was good like some of these other folk out here who can really sing. This is my intro song, so if you see this later on, like this. You didn't catch me live. This is how it starts off. Let's go.
I'm going home on the morning train. Oh, I'm going home on the morning train.
I should be in sync.
Evening
Let's
train just made me too late. Said I'm going home on the morning train.
Who's out there?
Oh, I'm going home on the morning train. Oh, I'm going home on the morning train. The evening train just made me too late. The evening train just made me too late. The evening train just made me
Let's go.
too late. So I'm going home on the morning train. Somebody just put your hands together. Mm-hmm. Oh, 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 yeah. Say yeah, yeah. The evening train just made me. The evening train just made me. The evening train
Good morning.
made me too late. So I'm going home. Yes, I am.
Angie and India.
Somebody just
What's going?
put your hands together. Said it made.
Woo!
Got my ticket in my hand.
I'm being in Philly streets. I might catch up with y'all.
I wanna be ready for when it comes.
Shout out to Ecam. Let's get it.
Yes, I will.
Everybody
say, oh, oh, oh. Say, yeah. Let me hear you say, oh, oh, oh. Let's finish it. Come on. The evening train just made me. The evening train just made me too late.
All right, for everybody that didn't go to church, I'm here. What's good?
Said I'm going home.
I'm going
on the morning train. Yeah.
There we go. So here I am this morning, and I actually don't even know where my buttons are for my music beds. Nonetheless, I may or may not find them. Let me see. Can I find something? I don't even know where they at because I forgot where I put them at. But there's no beat to this right here. And this is just morning joy music. Let's put this bed under here. Today, simply enough, I just want to talk about fires are not always meant to be fought. And I just want to throw a disclaimer out here because people butcher biblical texts all the time. This is inspiration, so you ain't got to be scared running away like, oh, he's going to talk about Jesus. It's not that whole thing. It's I think it's enough doctrinal teaching people don't go to, right? There's authenticity in word that people just don't get the information because they don't want it. But there are people that their calling is to inspire. And I believe that is a calling of mine, to inspire. Now, me personally, I sit down, I don't just get running off of, oh, God's going to enlarge your territory, or, double for your trouble, and just go into a praise breakdance. I'm just built a little bit different than that, a little tougher. Not saying that people ain't tough, but some people need that. They need that. I think there's a balance between keeping it 100 and taking words to inspire people. I just actually believe that. So without further ado, I'll just get to the point because I actually have to go to a church today. I'm not pastoring anymore. I am just Keith Pelzer. And I am a man of God. I believe I'm still a preacher. I love preaching. I love teaching. And I think that influence is the greatest teacher to an extent. Some people will argue that point, but influence is great. And I think as we live authentically, we, whether good or bad, we will inspire others. I believe that, as the old preacher said, if you're worried about the weeds on your lawn, just take care of the good grass and it'll weed out the weeds. And I believe that finding our authentic selves is the healthiest thing for this now generation. So this now generation meaning the composite of all generations that are living right now in the span from the eldest to the youngest. We're all on this planet together. So no matter what generation we call ourselves, if you're living, whether you're generation X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever you want to call it, millennial, blah, 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 we all, some kind of way, we converge in Target, we converge in the supermarket. You know, we're on a plane together. On a plane, you can have all these different generations. And so how you affect one another in the moment actually matters. And so this is why loving is one another is the strongest thing that we can do. Out of love, it causes things to happen and not happen. You know, we can have our differences, but if we push towards love or we acknowledge love, there's love and there's hate. And hate is, you can identify hate, it just pulls people away, but love is going to have some kind of draw. Even if it's not kumbaya, it's just going to have some kind of draw or a peace, as we say biblically, that transcends all understanding. I'm just going to go right to what you see at the bottom of the screen. And that is Daniel chapter 3, verse 26 to 27. What I noticed, and shout outs to people that have given me words of encouragement, that say, hey, yo, I needed that. Shout out to India and Angie, who they still may be in the comment section. They're friends of mine, but specifically India. We met in the pandemic and we are tech geeky freaks. You know, we love tech and audio, microphones, cameras. So she's got a beautiful setup. Awesome. You know, we just go live and just talk about cameras and gear and stuff like that because we like it. Sent me into photography. She's into photography, videography, you name it, streaming, all of that, because that's what we like to do. Okay. So I reached a whole community that I never thought I'd reach, and they actually like some of what I'm saying. So I'm just going to say it. In Daniel chapter 3, verse 26 and 27, it gives us this understanding about King Nebuchadnezzar. For those of you who may have heard it, have not, I'll explain in such a way that you might get what it is. It's about the 3 Hebrew boys in the fiery furnace. And it gives you this understanding that King Nebuchadnezzar comes to this, fiery furnace and speaks and says to these 3 Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, as preachers would say it. It says, ye people, you guys are servants of the Most High God. It says, come forth and come out of here. And then you get Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they come out of the midst of this fire that they're in. And the princes, the governors, and the captains, and everybody who's around there, they're gathered, and they saw these men being gathered together. They saw them, and they realized that their bodies, the fire they were in, had no power over them. There was not a hair burnt on their head. Their skin wasn't burnt up. Their coats weren't changed, and nor the smell of what they were in was actually on them. So the smell of the fire wasn't even on them. I'm gonna be real funny right now. You ever, I'm a producer, songwriter, and I've been in many studios, right? And even in our own, and I'm guilty as charged in some occasions, but reputation that'll have, you kind of would know where you've been because you come out of the rooms for inspiration and you smell like what we were smoking, right? So it's on you. If you go into a fish fry at an old Baptist church back in the day and you was in the kitchen with grandma and them, you go up in the service and people were sitting there, praise the Lord. Oh yeah, you smell like fish with grease or something like that because of what you've been in. These dudes was in the fiery furnace, right? And amazingly enough, what had happened to them in the fiery furnace, nothing that they were in, they didn't even smell like what they've been through. Now, here's something a lot of people say. We like to talk about, oh, you don't look like what you've been through. But these dudes didn't even smell like what people saw that they went through. So just for a little bit, because I have to get down the road to Philly, but you deal with the reality that you don't actually have to fight every fire. You don't have to fight every fire that you face. And what you realize is every fire that comes your way is not meant to be fought. And there are some fires that are just meant for you to go through it. Okay. A lot of people are scared of fires, but a lot of times you have to go through it. Now, remember, this is metaphoric, so don't go running into a burning building. But understand that spiritually, when you're going into a fire, you really don't even have to fuss. So we have here today this familiar passage of scripture, and it's really unique because we see that it's a miracle where God allows and God ordains his children to go through something without a fight. Now, this thing that they're going through is not a fight. People talk about through the fire, through the flood, and the things I'm going through, and they're always in a fight mode or a flight mode, and you don't even have to choose one or the other. Sometimes it's just a finesse mode. Just finesse your way through it and be at peace. So the history of these guys, it happens to be interesting because we find in chapter 1 of Daniel, there was a sort of a trial or a test that they faced. And that trial that they faced happened to really deal with food. And there was a 10-day trial that these guys were on. And they turned down this royal menu. There was concern that not eating what the earthly king commanded to eat would result in an unhealthy look. And well, in taking this challenge, the boys and Daniel, they rejected the king's food and went on a fast for 10 days of water and, watch this here, and vegetables. But the thing about it is that most people miss is they said, we challenge you to examine us and compare us with those who eat what the world eats, what everybody else is on. We challenge you to check us out and see later on. And then in verse 15, it picks up and reveals that at the end of the 10 days, they actually look better on the spiritual diet that they were on. Now, watch this here. Their fast was discipline. And so what some people need to understand is the discipline actually helps you in how you look, how you appear. The discipline is actually to help. And so as good as they were doing with their diet and as good as they looked and as skilled and knowledgeable as they were to be known according to the king and everybody else, and according to the end of chapter 1 of Daniel, it did not exempt them from the fire that they were about to face. A lot of people miss this. Even though you do the right thing, it does not actually exempt you from the fire that you are facing. So the thing is, we now get to a chapter that really doesn't involve them. All the things are chill and they're favored and in great positions until somebody snitches on them because they chose not to worship a fake God. Now, this is crazy because you got to understand that your worship actually might get you in trouble. Your praise might get you into trouble. But the reality is that the real fight is simply taking a stand and trusting in God, even in the face of your fire. Okay, understand this. Some people face a fire and the enemy presents a fire before you and people start to get scared of the fire and they start to change in their faith. And see, faith is actually understood better under fire, not when everything is going in your favor. Let me say that again. Faith is understanding how we see you when you're facing the fire, not when everything is going in your favor. A lot of people are always excited in their faith when everything is in favor towards how they want it or how they see it or what's easy or it's cool breeze. But see, when you facing a fire, sometimes you got to understand that people are watching and there are spectators watching you go into the fire that you're facing. I only have like a few minutes and I promise you I'll be less than a half an hour on this. I'm about to almost close. There's this thing about considering the fire. So when you consider the fire in this text, right? This fire represents the reality of trials in our actual lives. Looking at these three brothers that are in this Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're in this fire. Okay, we understand that in reality, and people got to hear this, the fire actually touches the saint. Here it is. I just got three things for you. The fire touches the saint. Now, when I say saint, we're kind of like generalizing all of these that I'm going to put on the screen, just the three, deal with kind of like church folk or believers in God. And understanding that the fire actually touches the saint. Nowhere does the Bible guarantee the saint of God freedom from the fires and the storms of life. Think about that. It's actually on the contrary. The Bible is filled with references to the fact that storms will come and that they will be a part of the life of every believer. Storms are actually, they're coming for you. It's kind of like living on this planet and saying we're never going to face a storm, right? You may compartmentalize yourself to an area that never has snow, and you won't have a snowstorm, but you may have a desert storm. you can live in a hot area and say, or in a cold area, say, I'll never have a desert storm, but you're going to have a winter storm, right? You're going to have a tropical storm. Understand there's more than one type of storm. There are different dust storms. You hear what I'm saying? And so storms are actually going to come because it's natural that it happens. And so the life of the believer has it. In John chapter 16 and verse 33, Jesus is recorded saying, these things have I spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. Because he says, in the world, you're going to have tribulation, but be of good cheer. So he doesn't say you won't have any kind of tribulation. He says you're going to have them, but be of good cheer because I have overcome the world. This is why we don't put our faith in things that we can see. This is why we don't put our hope, trust in this life, but we have to seek life eternal. So for everybody who's not a believer in Christ, understand this, don't believe in heaven, and you just kind of like, oh, I'm going to die and become a flower later on. You look to, I'm going to die and become a flower in my next life, or I'm going to become a panda bear in my next life. You look forward to it even while you're in this, so that the trials you're facing, you can think above it. Okay, you can think beyond what you're in, because there's a saying and there's a proof that your belief actually controls your behavior. Tribulation means a cause of great suffering, or it means trouble. And in this text, we find that trouble has come upon or found these three Hebrew boys. Now, we talked about their fasting. We talked about their belief in their God. We talked about their steadfast unmovableness. We talked about favor when everybody's ha ha he he kumbaya with them. But then somebody flips on them because they end up realizing that their faith is actually different. And now, after all that favor, they're facing a trial. But here it is. The fire touches the saint, but the fire also touches the one who serves. There are a lot of people that go to church, and you know, I'm just right now in a transitional moment, and a lot of people you'll talk to, they'll talk about, oh, I go to this church, I go to that church, and they're just holier than thou because they go to church. But the thing is, they're not always serving, they just attend somewhere. But now let's go to, I attend, but I also serve, or whether I'm not in the four walls, I serve because of my walk with Christ. But guess what? The fire going to touch you too. Okay, so that's that second thing on here. The fire actually touches the servant. Some people feel that being a servant of God guarantees them freedom from troubles. And many people in the position of these Hebrew boys often scream the words, why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong? Why is all this happening to me? Guess what? I used to be the same way for a while. I went through something for over 11 years, and the residue still creeps up from people that don't understand the process of what I had to go through. But you know what? It was somewhere in that whole years of fire burning that I realized that God is still in control and that this was something that I was going to go through but not get around. And I thought because I'm serving, I'm a pastor, and I'm this and that, the third, not narcissistic, not egotistical, but I'm just thinking like, well, I did what I'm supposed to do. I think, did I deserve this? Why is this happening to me? And they forget that serving won't guarantee you a pass on some of the inevitable trials that you're going to face in life. Serving does not exempt you from the fires that you got to go through. Serving is a part of the evidence of who you actually are in Christ. That's what serving is. And these guys were servants of the Most High God, but that fire was not something they were going to get around, but they had to go through it. And then here's the last thing. I told y'all I'm done. Fire actually touches the separated. Let's not forget about the separated. Now, let me clarify what I mean by separated. The interesting thing here is that there were 3 of them in this together, but there are some who claim to be saints and they serve, but they're separated. Now, we got the pandemic that came up, and when the pandemic came up, there are people who were separated from church. Pandemic caught them, and now they're trying to figure out where's church. Is it open? What's going on? What's happening with the world? Is everybody dying? What's going on? They are the I just stay in my lane, folks. You know, let's tap into the church, wherever the church is, or wherever the gathering of people is that we think church is, or we want to get married. So does the church still exist? Somebody died. Where's the church? A baby's born. Want to get them blessed. Is the church there? We want to get married. Everything is like, okay, that place is supposed to exist of the gathering of people that I'm not actually connected to because I stay in my lane. Well, guess what? In your lane, a fire exists for you too. And so here's the interesting thing. I stay in my lane. Consider the fact that whether alone, whether single or with the crew, you still gonna go through. It's almost as if saints use holiness and separation like some kind of VIP way to please the Lord. There's people that, they compartmentalize themselves. There's a fire for you too. If I'm good enough, then nothing bad should happen to me. I don't mess with nobody, so that should keep me out of the fire. Well, whether you are connected or separated, there is a furnace in your future. And the only thing that will get you through it is actually going to be your faith through the fire, not around the fire. Even people who mind their business find themselves in the furnace sooner or later. Consider Job. He suffered like many other people. He suffered like other people have suffered, but he suffered like few other men could actually even imagine. God's testimony about him was that he was a man of God. A clean life does not mean a protected life from trouble. Let that sink in. A clean life does not mean a protected life from trouble. Sometimes God will take the holiest, the cleanest, and the best he has, and he puts them in the fire, not for them to perish, but so that he can use them for his glory to prove that he's still God. Now, catch this here. I'm rushing through this because I'm telling you, I do got to get out the door. Too often we complain about our fires rather than consider the fire. Now, here's what happened with this fire. These boys had to consider that there were consequences involved with not obeying man, but they chose to obey God. Obeying God got them favored in looks. Let this sink in. Obeying God got them favored in their looks, in their skills, and their knowledge. And they realized that God had brought them a mighty long way and too far to fall off in their faith. So they considered the fire here in this text. Now, watch verse 13. If you kind of remember this text and look in verse 13, I just got this as a side note. Remember that the same king who favored these 3 is now the one who's furious with them. Be very careful about people that favor you for the moment, but they'll put you in the fire, even though they favored you. The king then goes to ask, is it true what folk are saying about your lack of worship in these idols and the statue? Well, by verse 15, he says, I'm going to give you a second chance, but wait for it. Here's what many of us still haven't learned to do, and it's in verse 16. I'm glad you like this text. Watch what it says. The king does his rant. They're facing this fire that man has the power to put them in. They've already experienced favor by the God of Israel, and in consideration of the fire that they face, they basically told the king, your threat don't mean a daggone thing to us. Understand this. You don't have to fight every fire. I'm going to continue this next week. But listen, they basically said your threat means nothing to us. That's what I'm going to close on. You ain't got to fight every fire. Every fire ain't meant for you to be fought, meant for you to fight it. But you got to look at it like this. The threat of the fire means nothing to me. It's all about who controls the furnace. My faith is in the one who controls the furnace. As bad as life can get for you, you have to put your faith in the one who controls the furnace. And so when you do, you don't have to worry about fighting the fire. All you have to do is be concerned about your faith in the one who has control over, around, in, and through the fire. That's it for today. I'm good to go. I got to get down the road today. I am going to see my brother Bryant Keith McKnight. He's going to be preaching today. I am emceeing. I'll be out in the West Philly streets. I'm about to hit the road. People, if I see you in public, I'm going to get some kind of picture somewhere, some way. I hope this has been a blessing to you on today, and understand you don't have to fight every fire. Daniel, in the book of Daniel chapter 3, you'll find this whole context. I'll jump back on it later, and I'll talk about how you can be confident in committing to your fire. That's it for me. And if I hit the right button, I think I got it. Got my sing Sonya. Who's out there? Say something to me. Love y'all. Boom. Sing. Sing, boy. This joy I have, the world didn't give to me. Oh, this joy I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, this joy I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. My little secret. So, these are my real glasses. These don't have no lenses in them, see? Been restored, been restored, I've been restored. All right, bless you all. I'll holler. And the end button is right here.